Welcome to this video on board roles and responsibilities. This is part one of two videos on the topic. My name is Justin Solomilo. I am with the Community Development Unit of Alberta Culture, Multiculturalism, and Status of Women. Before I begin, I would like to mention that the goal of our board development video series is for board members of nonprofit organizations to have the basic knowledge, skills, and tools to be successful in their work. We realize that some of you are not board members, and that's fine, but we want you to be aware that the information, concepts, and ideas presented are from board member perspectives. Also, the information presented here is aimed at an introductory level or as a refresher for board members to ensure that they have the base level understanding of board governance concepts and principles needed to successfully do their work. We do have other resources that we can share with you, such as our toolkit. There is a link in the description of this video to our toolkit that provides additional resources and links that we think are helpful for you and your nonprofit organization as you tackle your governance issues. Included in this toolkit is a copy of the slides we use in this video and all the videos in our board development video series. You can also hit the subscribe button down below and turn the notifications on to subscribe to our YouTube channel and get notifications about our upcoming videos. The last thing I want to mention before we get going in this video, we're not providing advice. The information offered in this video and related materials are not intended to constitute legal advice, the rendering of the legal concepts, consulting, or other professional services of any kind. We simply want to share with you information that we think will be helpful for board members as you navigate your organization through its governance and operations. By the end of this video, you'll be able to define governance and stewardship, identify and explain the 4 key roles of the board and the 7 key responsibilities of the board. So without further ado, let's get going. So what is governance? If you ever tried to Google a definition of governance, you'll find dozens, if not hundreds, of different definitions about what governance is. We've landed on a couple of definitions for governance, and together we think they address some of the things that we think are important to consider when you're talking about governance. The first definition: governance is a combination of both the overall processes and structures that are used in directing and managing the organization's operations and activities. So this one's a lot about processes, or in other words, instructions, structures, the operations, and deciding what the activities of the organization are. A question I would ask about this definition is, how do the structures relate to the operations? The second definition is the framework of rules, relationships, systems, and processes within and by which authority is exercised and controlled. Both definitions talk about processes. I think the difference in the second one is interesting. It includes the rules and relationships and systems in governance. With this definition, the question that comes to mind is, how are all the pieces of the organization related to each other? The relationships within the organization are important. What are the expectations for how people interact and behave with each other? We often talk about policies and bylaws and some of the rules of the organization, but relationships between individuals and groups of individuals are also very important to consider. I think systems refers in part to the relationship between the structures in the organization. Throughout our time together, we will be talking about information that is relevant to relationships, how individuals and groups of individuals relate to each other, structures, the different groups of people that exist in an organization, and systems, how the various groups in the organization relate to one another. Another concept that I think is very important in governance is stewardship. Stewardship is the responsibility of the board of directors of an organization to do active oversight. The boards of organizations must actively oversee the organization's activities. Active oversight is a word that we use very often when we go through many of our videos. You hear us talking about active oversight throughout these video series because it's very important. As a board member, you have to be active and you have to create an accurate understanding of the activities and processes that the board is involved in. Because as a board, you're part of the highest level decision-making body in the organization. So you have to be very active in understanding what's going on in your organization. Keep stewardship and active oversight in mind throughout this presentation. We'll remind you too. The board works to ensure that these 4 key roles are fulfilled. The first role of the board is defining and advancing the organization's purpose. This means that you and your fellow board members need to know what the purpose of the organization is and develop some kind of plan that will ensure that the organization fulfills that purpose. The next one is ensuring, developing, and conserving resources of the organization. This is about financial and human resources, as well as the organization's property. What financial, human, and property resources does the organization have? Does the organization have all the resources that it needs, or does it need more? How will the organization obtain these resources? And perhaps most important question is, what does the board need to do to ensure that it understands what resources it has and what resources it needs? The next key role is providing oversight to the organization's affairs. An important part of board governance is exercising effective control over the organization. Effective control includes active oversight. That is, board members ensure that they understand what is happening in the organization and why. Actively ensuring that you understand your organization means that you're always finding out more about your organization and how it's operating and what's the board's role in the organization. The last one is engagement. This is something that really talks about relationships. Engagement could be in outreach with external stakeholders. It could be with internal stakeholders like staff and volunteers. But regardless, it is one of the 4 key roles of the board to engage in and manage outreach with stakeholders. These 4 key roles describe what the board should be thinking about. They describe broad activities that are necessary for the organization to be involved in. These 7 responsibilities describe actions that help your board successfully achieve the 4 key roles. Organizational purpose and planning is the first of the 4 key roles and the first of the 7 responsibilities. This includes understanding the vision, mission, and values of your organization. Where do you want your organization to be, and how are you going to get there? Your vision, mission, and value statements describe this for your organization. The next step is to understand how you use the vision and mission to guide the creation of a plan for your organization. Then, you can create the plan that will get your organization to where it wants to be. The second is legal responsibilities. One of your legal responsibilities is understanding what external and internal rules affect your organization. That is, what written laws exist that affect your organization. External rules, if you're incorporated, the incorporation legislation contains information about what you must do. Other laws like income tax legislation still apply to you, even though you are a nonprofit and don't pay taxes. You still have to submit a yearly tax return. But you also have building codes, copyright laws, and many others that apply to you. Internal rules, also, it's important to understand what your internal rules are. Documents like objects, bylaws, policies, procedures describe with different levels of detail what your organization has decided to do. So understanding your internal rules is also part of your legal responsibility. Legal responsibilities go beyond internal and external rules. It also includes, is your board taking steps to ensure that its liability is minimized, which includes you talking about and addressing conflict of interest. Creating an ethical culture and practicing good governance is your third responsibility. Ethical culture is understanding how you want to behave as an organization. It's the board that sets the example. So for example, How do you want to treat each other in the work that you do? Does your board follow good governance principles? What positive personal qualities and characteristics do your board members bring to the table? Or in many cases these days, a computer screen for a Zoom meeting. If I was to think of what is really important for effective and good governance, I would say that it is active oversight and asking questions. So how are you making sure that your board has that active oversight? If you're not sure, ask questions. These are all part of ethical culture and exercising good governance. Managing risk and liability. Well, this responsibility is understanding that what sorts of risk your organization is exposed to. Every organization has risks. But what are some of those high risk areas that will affect your organization? It's good to understand what those areas are and what those areas mean for the liability of the organization. If your organization is engaged in some activities that have a certain level of risk, you may want to understand more about that risk and take steps to ensure that it is less likely to happen and reduce your liability. In other words, identify, rank, and manage the risks that your organization has. Financial responsibilities. Whatever level of understanding of accounting and finances you have when you arrive to the board table, you need to have a good understanding of your organization's finances and financial activities. It's very important to know where the organization is spending money, and it's very important to set up processes or controls to ensure that the board can get the latest information about what's going on in the organization. It can be complex, so if you don't understand what is going on, ask questions. That's the number one thing. Ask questions. Demonstrating leadership and working as a team. The board chair is often seen as the leader that everybody follows in the organization. But that person or position is supported by other leaders on the board. So ask yourself, what is leadership? And how are you demonstrating that you work as a team? And the last one is relationship management. Ensuring good relationships externally and internally in the organization is a key responsibility of board members. This responsibility is a view to relationship management. How do you know what the relationships are, and how are you going to ensure that everybody who needs to talk to each other are actually talking to each other? So you need to look at relationships inside, so management staff, staff volunteers, members, and so on, as well as outside the organization, funders, government partners, business community, media, and so on. And ensure that your board is making sure they are where they need to be for the organization to successfully do its work and meet its goals. Just as an aside, this list of 7 responsibilities is almost identical to the topics that we will cover in this video series. This brings us to the end of part 1 of our video on board roles and responsibilities. Thank you for watching. Our contact information is on the slide, and they are in the toolkit as well. If you are in Alberta and you have a question, or you need further information, or would like to request services, you can contact us through email and phone. You can also access our website to know more about our resources and services. And also, if you want to be informed of our future services and resources, you could add your email address to our subscription form, and you will receive information about our services and resources as they become available. The link to the subscription form is in the description of the video as well. Thank you for your attention. Take care, stay healthy, and always remember that our communities have so much more because of everything you do. Thank you all, and bye for now.